All right. I'm here with Tommy Conway, physiotherapist and owner of One Health Physiotherapy and Pilates in Tullamore, Ireland. Tommy, how you doing today?
Good, yeah, Tullamore Ireland. This is Tullamore. I don't know what's with that, Anthony.
Man, Tommy, I don't have the brogue.
Yeah, I'm good, Anthony. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Do you want to start just giving a little bit of background as far as your experience, what got you into physiotherapy, and then some of the professional development you've done to get you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm a chartered physiotherapist based in Ireland. I would have studied in Ireland initially on a 2-year higher certificate course, and then I went on and studied physiotherapy in Manchester in the UK. And I travelled back to Ireland, and then I set up my own clinic. It was in the worst recession ever, so I kind of done my own thing, and I met lots of good people that helped me out and let me see clients and set up my own clinic. And then that was called TC Physiotherapy, and we branched that then into One Health only last year. So it's a physio clinic, a Pilates studio, a yoga studio, and we have a nutritionist on site as well. So it's all in one. That's our first phase development of that model. So that's been good, but COVID kind of hit it a little bit, but we're getting back into full operation now. So we're looking forward to July when I think everything will be able to open. Regards to professional development, since finishing my degree, I would have done a lot of courses, probably trying to catch up for the fact I didn't have a mentor, because there was no jobs going, so there was no one taking on much mentees at that time. And yeah, I'd done a lot of different stuff. So I would have done all the PRI courses. I think I'd done 7 or 8 in total, and then I'd done the PRC, and that's where I met yourself in Nebraska. Brilliant week. And yeah, so I've done a PRC, and I've done other stuff, anatomy and motion. I've done that. I've done dry needling courses, different mobilization courses. But yeah, that's pretty much my background. So yeah, constantly involved.
Tommy, I'll never forget being in that Irish pub in Lincoln, Nebraska, when you got turned down for a beer in an Irish pub.
They wouldn't accept my driving license.
They wouldn't accept you.
They wanted my passport. Like, I know. It was that was really such a weird place, Nebraska. Like it was like, oh God, it's so funny. Like the stuff that used to happen, the stupidity of the whole lot. Like the hotel we were staying in was like a 2-star, and it was like an 8-star hotel. Like your room was the size of a house. You had your own living room and everything in the house. That was the hardest week of my life to get there. My ESTA, which is my visa that you get from Ireland, ran out when I got to the airport, and I had a different passport, so I had to try and apply for my ESTA, and the site crashed. So I had to get a plane the next day. And then when I landed in Chicago, I had to change for a flight to Nebraska. I was only an hour and 20 minutes to the flight takeoff time, and I had to get my bag, run through the airport, deposit my bag, run on. And I got through fairly well. And then I realized I left my wallet on the desk. I had to run back, get my wallet, then run to the plane. Got on the plane. I ran that hard. I'm not a great runner. My throat was burning for the whole flight, and they wouldn't hand out water because we were stuck on the runway, and they weren't legally allowed to hand out water. So I mean, that whole week, my throat was killing me. And then I broke my phone on my second day I was there. But it was a great week. It was really enjoyable. But yeah, and then that crap where wouldn't serve me a beer, and and I was very thirsty, you know. And it's hilarious, like that sort of stuff. Thinking I was 16.
Unreal. My trip to Ireland was much smoother and courteous than that. So kudos to Ireland there. But anyway, Tommy, I want to get into something I really respect in our conversations and what you've been posting is your perspective on building patient rapport and patient communication. I think you have a lot to say about that, and I think your tactics and techniques and just your overall personality are so well suited to that. So really where I want to start is, when you think about patient rapport and building that patient relationship, what are your main principles?
So yeah, first of all, I think it's probably the most important aspect of a new grad PT is to start looking at this first instead of trying to think about getting more knowledge, more technical knowledge about PT or techniques. Yes, they do give you confidence, but if you don't start to look at each situation and analyze how to make it better and deal with the person in front of you, you're really going to struggle for a long proportion of your career. So my principles would be very simple. I like to block people into different personality types. So one personality test that we might use is what we call a DISC. And there are 4 distinct personality types. So a D will be a dominant personality type. They want to control the environment. They want to control what time they book their appointments. They want to control that they want more exercise or they want less exercises. They want to walk into the treatment room and jump straight on the bed. They're a dominant character. And then you have an I, which will be someone that's kind of see a shiny object, gone to the next shiny object. So going to get very hard to keep them people on track. Then your sympathetic type S, which will be very much really, really easy going. Won't tell you if you're not improving them because they don't want to hurt your feelings as a clinician. Won't tell you why they're in pain. They're just really trying to please everyone. And then a C is commonly what physiotherapists actually are and strength coaches, which are quite analytical and like detail and like to know how many reps and sets. And if you give them a stopwatch, they'll be even more delighted. And each one of them personality types will come in with different conditions. But what you have to do is you have to come up with a strategy for, say, a lower back pain for a D, an I, an S, and a C. And then that's how you will treat them. And you won't change that. So you're gonna find that you're going to get certain situations that happen in the treatment room. And within the first year post PT school, we're in the clinic. All these situations happen, but we never record what happens. We never write down what our solution was to the problem. And we just repeat the same mistake over and over again. And usually what happens is the ones that we really struggle with, we never record how we dealt with the situation because we always feel inadequate when we deal with that situation. We don't feel we've done a good job. But that's the situation where we need to get the proper strategy in place to help ourselves. So I would have kind of done this where when people come into my room, I want to make a decision on the person's personality. It's not a judgment. It's just a decision. No personality is better than the others. They all have positives, and like we all know, certain personality types have negatives. But I try to make a decision within the first maybe 2 minutes, and then I try to alter my treatment process for their personality. So if they come in with chronic lower back pain, Anthony, and they're an I-type personality, I'm not going to give them a 3-month recovery window. I'm going to give them 2-week blocks to keep them entertained so they don't fall off, because the I person is looking for constant distraction. They don't like long conversations. They probably won't even watch this video because, you know, they want TikTok. They're not interested in YouTube. So we have to think about that type of person and someone that you have in your home life and wonder how you would actually get that person to engage. You have to keep it really snappy and entertainment. So you have to make a judgment quite quick. That's what I primarily do. So hopefully that helps you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So I think what that does for people is sometimes you look at people, and some people have better emotional intelligence than others. Some people are better analytical thinkers than others. So that's true for physical therapists as well. So I think what that does is it allows something that some people might inherently be able to pick up on and create these archetypes or buckets to where the more analytical people might just be able to pick up on different data points. So what are some of the main signs for each of those 4 categories that helps you to categorize those people?
So I'll give you a situation, picking someone up from the waiting room. Okay. So if we take the D, the I, the S, and the C, and we're just going to, D means dominant. So they want to dominate the situation. I, again, means that they're a shiny object person. You need to entertain them. S, again, is going to be quite sympathetic. They're going to be really nice and friendly and kind to you, and they don't want to hurt your feelings as a therapist. And a C is going to be very analytical. So if we take each situation, when we present at the waiting room, we say, hi, do you want to come in for an appointment? Your dominant character will probably walk in past you. You'll ask them to take a seat and then straight away go over to the bed. They'll decide where they want to sit. Or they'll literally grab, as you'll see, your chair will be positioned in front of the laptop. The other chair will be positioned beside the laptop so you can engage in a consultation. They'll usually try to sit in your chair. These are situations that, you know, like that's a D personality. Because the way I look at it is, if I walk into a clinician's waiting room and I see a chair in front of a laptop, I automatically think that's their chair. So I wouldn't sit in it. But what you'll find with D types is they'll sit wherever they want because they're the boss. So that's one telltale for them. An I type personality will be someone that walks in and they can't really sit down to concentrate. They're sitting down, but they're looking around the room because they want to make out the room. Your C personality will be very, very, very good attention to detail. They'll walk in slowly, they'll listen to your cues exactly where to sit, and they'll be really compliant because they listen for everything and they take it quite serious. And an S type personality is they'll be, can I please sit down here? They'll ask you for permission for nearly everything throughout the room. So there's small little things that you can find. But what I believe is certain conditions, certain people won't ever get because of their personality type, unless they've had an accident. So you won't find a huge amount of C's with chronic back pain because they're very analytical, that they really, really want to get out of this situation. So they're going to try and not stop until they figure out how to get rid of it. While you will find a lot of D's will probably get it because they're going to be dominating the situation throughout. They're not going to listen to anyone, and they're going to believe that what they know is best anyways. So they're going to really fly through. And they're usually very successful people because they're successful head of companies and stuff. So they're quite hard to deal in a situation. But I'd always try to take the waiting room and take the situation of you closing the door or they closing the door, or take the situation of where they sit when they present, can give you a really good indication of what type of personality they are. Now again, I will write in my notes, the first thing I write will be like D, I, S, or C. And end of my notes, I confirm if I'm right or not. So it's a game. It's a game I play internally, and I get all my therapists to play it to see, can they figure out if that's the right course of action for that person. You can't just go in. That's why systems are quite dangerous, is everyone now in PT wants a system. But good ones don't need systems. Good physiotherapists and good coaches don't need systems. They need them to teach their other staff members. They need them to keep them on track when they get into a situation that they don't feel comfortable, and they can rely on them and hinge on them. But you can find that good PTs, they can react to anything on the spot. They're reactionary because they're critically thinking everything. And trialing and error is the most important thing. That's the game we play. That's the fun part of our job, is trial and error. Because really, like I wrote it in a tweet earlier, like, no one finds physiotherapy that interesting, except physiotherapists. And then there's strength and conditioning coaches that find it interesting. But very few D-type strength and conditioning coaches find it interesting. Usually C-type strength and conditioning coaches find it interesting. But surgeons don't find it interesting. GPs don't find it interesting. So like, for us as physiotherapists, when we go to a dinner party or cocktail party, not too many people care what we do. They usually just tell us what's wrong with them. So for us to have a bit of fun, we might as well start playing the game inside the room. I think that's important. I'm going to wave at my baby Molly. She's out the window.
Awesome. I think the cool part about that is, again, we talked about, experienced clinicians don't need a system, but one of the hard things to teach a young clinician is this confidence with patient rapport. So being able to pick up on these small things and delineating that, it helps grow the pattern recognition. We need buckets or categories in order to start associating those patterns. So I love that. So Tommy, let's use a general example of, let's say, a runner with knee pain. Can you give a differentiating quality of how you're going to handle the initiation of course of care, or the initial conversation with a D, an I, an S, or a C? Yeah,
so like, you're going to get, like, if a runner comes in with knee pain, first thing I'd say categorically for runners is to keep them running. Unless it's something that requires surgery, or unless it's something that cannot get better. But usually what I would do with all runners is I would try and communicate that they have a coach, and I will try and touch base with that coach to try and figure out, can we reduce mileage but keep them running, to keep them happy, because the endorphins need to be high for them to have a good result. I've never had a positive result from stopping a runner full-time running. They need to do something, cross-training even, so that's something. But like, say a D-type runner comes in, they're usually going to run consistently with this knee injury, and they're going to try and really hammer the road out of it, and they're going to try and run the pain out of their knee. That's the sort of person they're going to be. And what I have to do is I have to try and not create conflict with that person, because that person will try at nearly all aspects to create conflict with me. They will not follow my program. They probably won't do the sessions when I want them done. They'll probably want them to book them in at their time. So commonly Ds will say to you, can you not do like 6:30 in the morning? Or they might say, can you not do 9:30 at night? So they're trying to push you to your limits to see what you do it for them. And then you're their understudy, or you're their little therapist that they can control. So with them people, it's very important that you leave it on them in the right manner. So you ask them, can you tell me a time that will work really well for you? Because I want to have the best result for you. Now I've learned from the past. I used to make mistakes with this. I used to confront the Ds head on, and try and persuade them that my way was better. And only one mentor told me, he said, the easiest thing is to create conflict for a D, because they always want that. That's what they feed off. So it was really negatively impacted me as a therapist. I thought I was getting benefit out of it, but I wasn't. So I was overthinking it, because I'd be more of a C-type personality, analytical. So the way I deal with them now is I ask them when it suits them for their appointments. I ask them, how long do you want to get better? How long do you want to improve? And usually if the Ds won't like a huge amount of exercises, they like a competition where they'll say to you, right, can you get me better in 5 weeks? And you would say, yeah. They'll say, I guarantee you can't. And they'll make sure you cannot get them better in 5 weeks. They'll go every way against you. So goal setting for Ds is not that important. You want to be thinking about, right, I'm going to try and get rid of this knee pain, and maybe you're going to do 2 sessions a week with me instead of 1, because I need to do some hands-on treatment. I need to do the exercise in the gym. But you pretty much let them lead it. And that's your strategy to a point. You put in your little bit of information into their head, and then you're waiting for them to put it back to you. So like what I would call inception. It's very important with these, because if you try and boss them around the room, they will not react well to it.
You got to make it their own idea.
Yeah, their own idea, exactly. So you kind of have to ask them a lot of subtle questions. So what I always do in clinic is I look for a personal fact about them. I look for what they're doing at the weekend. And I always like to ask if they've pets, or if they've a partner, or stuff like that, or hobbies that they're really interested in. And I try and find which one of them they talk the most positively about. And then if they're in a real negative spin because they're having a lot of knee pain, I want to try and start my conversation, the second session, with that positive thought. So most therapists, what they do second session is, how are the exercises going? What a crap question. Like, it's the most crap question you can ask. They know that you're going to ask it to everyone else that comes in the door. Now, I've done it. But what a better question is, session 1, John with knee pain. We know he's a dominant type knee pain. But we want to show John that we care for him, because he's a really upfront character. He likes confrontation, so he doesn't get too many people caring for him. And John says that his favorite pastime is going for a long walk with his daughter, and she rides horses. And he likes to bring her, he walks around the pen when she's riding the horses. And they're going to do it on Saturday for 3 hours. The second consult, you're saying, how did you get on with your daughter in this place? 3 hours walking around the pen was a good day. That he's butter. He's butter, melted butter for you to play with then, because you have him every way possible to get him better. Because he thinks straight away, by God, he listens to me. Now, that's the one mistake people make. Listening is recall. And them tricks are very important for all personality types. But these are probably the hardest as therapists to deal with, I would say, and in general, because they like to be the boss. And unfortunately, as clinicians, we like to control that, because we want to have a plan in our head.
Right.
I's, flighty, you want to give them small goals, weekly goals. S's, you want to really tell them here, if you're not honest to me and tell me exactly how you're feeling, it's not going to work. You have to try and get into their head about, it's important that you don't worry about my feelings. I want you to get you better. You have to show them as much care as they show you. And C's, they like structured plans. So we have to give them structured plans. If you don't give C's structured plans and deadlines, they will not be happy. You can't drip feed them information, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question, Anthony.
100%. That's great. So, Tommy, I think another thing that I know that I had trouble with when I was first starting and had to find varied strategies for, and something we've spoken about previously is when a patient comes in with a diagnosis, either from a different physiotherapist or a physician or a family member or WebMD diagnosis, right? That's something you don't agree with necessarily on your evaluation. How do you handle that conversation? And what are some mistakes you see people making dealing with that conversation?
It's probably the biggest mistake we make as therapists is thinking that our level of knowledge or understanding of it should be explicitly said immediately when you hear something that you don't agree with. So we get emotional about our diagnosis just as much as the client gets emotional about their diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So commonly you get people that come in and they say, right, I have a slip disc in their back. And I've seen therapists and people that I've trained react by saying, but that's rubbish, you can't slip a disc. And I've probably done this in the past myself, but you can see some people's faces going, and you know well that they're gone, they're not returning. So the question you always have to ask, it's like everything, ask better questions. Sometimes it's better waiting to hear who gave them that diagnosis. Because if it's the family GP that's been in the family for 50 years, I'm not even questioning that diagnosis. I'm just going to get the client better. And then I'm going to tell the client that what we're going to try and do is maintain you that this doesn't happen to you again. I don't want to create conflict. If it's another therapist that they really like and they've given them a diagnosis, again, I don't think I'll go against them until they like me more than the other therapist. I think that's very important, is that some people come in and they want to hear your answer for conflict. They want to be confirmed that the other person messed them up. And that's not our jobs. Our jobs is to get that person better. And if someone comes in with the idea, this person's not going to improve me, but I want to know if I'm right. That's not your job. And that's something that you should be always very aware of, that if people are always coming in and saying, what do you think of this therapist? What do you think of that therapist? You're going to struggle to get that person better because you're going to be in the firing line as well. Yeah. And you kind of have to say to yourself, some people just like going to different people and talking about them. It's a gossip wheel. But yeah, probably my rule of thumb for new clinicians is I want to know who gave the diagnosis. So I want to dig deeper into who gave it to them. And then I want to dig into why the client believes it. And then if I think they prefer me as a human being, I will only then give my opinion on it. I won't beforehand because that's egotistically stupid of me. And it's just been smart and mature. And I've done it so much in the past where I have given a different opinion to another professional immediately, and probably made a mistake because the client didn't like it because they trusted what the other professional had said. So realistically, when we think about it, diagnosis is so important. But for a lot of our conditions as a physiotherapist, a lot of them meld into one. A lot of conditions. So you can get pain down the leg. And we can see this, Anthony. How many people come in with sciatica and it isn't sciatica? But what's the point of arguing the fact this isn't sciatica? Because they still have pain down the leg. So unless you can get them out of pain, but you keep reiterating, sciatica lasts 6 months. And you get them out of pain in 2 weeks. Only when you get them out of pain, tell them, to be honest with you, that wasn't sciatica. Because it doesn't get that good that quick if it is. This is your problem and this is what we need to do to stop this coming back. But I wouldn't start saying this isn't sciatica straight away just for the sake of saying it. That means no sense. You're not lying to the client. You have to be very careful psychologically not to go against people's emotional things that they're holding on to. They're using them to get them to the next stage, and you can't go against them because that ruins the relationship. So it's probably the most fundamental thing that I try and teach my staff is, when I'm teaching my staff, Anthony, I'm more concerned with their ability to deal with people than I am with their technical ability. Because there's plenty, we all know this. Anyone that's going to be listening to this, they're in a small town or in a large city. They know a coach down the street that's never done any continuing ed, or a PT that's never done any continuing ed, that's knocking it out of the park with client numbers. Why? Because they get this part. They get the psychological impact on people. They understand how to be nice to them, and they're able to build rapport with people better than anyone. And you have everyone else that's studying all the technical stuff, and they ignore what they're bad at, which is they have no client rapport. And like some PTs, I won't be afraid to say this. I have one PT that said to me, "Tommy, what can I do to get better?" And I said straight to him, "You need to change your personality." And he was like, "What do you mean? I know who I am." I said, "But that's not going to get you clients." He was too intense. He was like staring at them when they were talking, trying to be really, really open. And most people, like I could see in the room, they were like this, they were going back. And it's really important that you're adaptable. I think that's the key. But that's probably one of the most fundamental things, Anthony, that question. People make a horrible mistake by just jumping in with their diagnosis.
No, I love that. And I think that the adaptable piece is huge. I always think for myself and tell the students I'm working with that you have to be a different iteration of yourself with every person that walks in the door, right? You have to be adaptable. So one piece of advice I got from a mentor was you have to think of yourself like the host of a party. Mm-hmm. Whether you're introverted or the most extroverted person in the world, when you step through those clinic doors and that patient walks in, you need to be that host there. And the host needs to be accommodating to the guests and the type of party they're having, right? So identifying those patterns of the person and then molding yourself to make them the most comfortable based off what they need. Another piece I like what you said there was, depending on how strongly held the beliefs are, the more you need to show the person, not tell them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that we all walk in and everyone walks in with a story. And like you said, the first thing you're trying to gauge is what is that story that person's telling themselves or have it been told? That's the first question. The second question is, how much do they believe it?
Yeah.
And the amount of buy-in they have, or the amount of belief, the power, and how deeply embedded that is, that limits the size of your hammer. That limits the size of your tool. And you need to work out of the hole there to build that narrative for yourself. And I think that comes through a show them, not tell them standpoint. They have to experience it. They have to feel it, because words only mean so much.
Yeah, and it's the stuff that we've seen before. The stupidity of stuff of let's educate them on pain science in the first 5 minutes. Like, let's entertain them because they're in pain. Like, if you've really good fun as a clinician with your front desk, and it's good atmosphere in the building, 95% of people are just going to be happy to come back and see what's going to happen next week. And then you're bringing them into the room and you have this set rule book for them, and it's pain science at the start. Like, I couldn't imagine anything more boring as a client. And I've done elements of it before, but that's why with my clinicians, when I'm teaching them, I want them to be very good at understanding that, like you said, they have to adapt to each situation, adapt to each person. The easiest way I teach them, though, is try and write down 5 to 6 people that they're really close to, and try and to figure out what type of personality each one of them is. Give it a guess. So I give them the DISC archetype of what they are, and I ask them to guess what these people are. And then I said, every one of them comes in with low back pain for 10 years. Now, how do you work with them? Which one is the hardest to work with? Now we need to come up with a strategy of how you're going to get better at dealing with that person. And that means that you have to perform when you enter the building. I remember my front desk manager said, "Tommy, I've never seen you in bad form for 5 months." I said, "Oh, I've been in bad form nearly every second day." But I said, when I get out, when I walk in that door, I know it's not my time anymore. It's the people that are coming for a service. It's their time. And that's why the clinician downtown or the SC coach that's absolute client numbers are filling in and never done any CPT for 10 years, is because he knows how to adapt. And that's where the introverted people, like, that have been, I'm an introvert and I really know who I am, that's really good, but that should be left at the door too, because you're not that entertaining. And that's my belief. Like, you're boring. So clients are going to find you quite boring. So I think it's really important, like you said, to understand the show and tell. It's really, it depends on the person what they need. But don't go in with a set system. Like, you have to adapt.
Sure. Yeah. I think another piece of it too is being authentic to yourself, though, because I think within that frame, something I've seen mistake be is people get this idea and then they think, oh, I have to be this character, the showman during this, but people can sniff out inauthenticity in a second. So if you are introverted, it's finding that way to engage and socialize within that. If you're extroverted, it's doing that. If you're funny, do that. You know, if you're empathetic, be that person, but find that iteration that is best suited for the person in front of you. But be yourself, be authentic.
Like one thing that I got into this about 2 or 3 years ago, where I started to think being a good listener is sitting there just listening. And I kept reading books on this, and I wanted to improve my listening skills because I was convinced that my communication skills needed to improve. And it was amazing. It was one client experience that told me that my listening skills weren't good enough. Now, the client was a friend, and I kind of really took it that I'm really bad at this. But I remember then I had a few clients in, and one man in particular, I'll never forget, but he trained himself just to sit there and listen. But he never took in anything you said. He wasn't interested in what you said. It was one of those blank things that being a good listener is just being quiet. It isn't. Being a good listener is recall. And as you would know, Anthony, I'm a talker. But I remember a lot about what people say to me, because when they talk back, I recall it to them on the next occasion. So don't make the mistakes I've made with trying to improve communication. Recall is so important, and that's why I put in them small little tips on my note section about recall. I'm trying to even improve myself on that. But that's one time, like, I made a mistake, like you just said, where I'm trying to improve an aspect of myself that I'm never going to be good at. Mm-hmm. And we should just go with our strengths. You know, that's pretty much it. We should go with our strengths, and we'll be all right. And the self-help books won't tell us that, but really, it's so important as clinicians just to figure out why people like coming to you.
Sure, it's that self-awareness piece, right? You first have to understand yourself before you can understand how to leverage that for positive while mitigating the negative effects, because no one's going to be perfect. No one's going to be the most well-rounded clinician.
No.
Like you said, I think, maximizing strengths is humongous. Mm-hmm. So Tommy, tell us how your experience in comedy and stand-up helped you deliver better customer service in the clinic.
Yeah, so that was brilliant. I really enjoyed it now, to be honest, Anthony. It was like, I'm involved in this club in my local area, and it's like it's a club that you just meet other professionals and stuff, and we do stuff for the local communities, but we have a comedy night, and there's always the members do it. So I said I'd do it because one of the members didn't want to do it, and then we were going to be short on numbers, so I said I'd do it. And what it taught me was that you really have to rehearse your script so well. One comedian that my wife's father, he does promotions for comedians in Ireland. So I met one comedian. He said 700 words, about 7 minutes talking. So he said, if you want to do 7.5 minutes, you do 750 words. He said, don't write 1,500 words. Mm-hmm. He said, because that's going to be 15 minutes, and don't rush it. So that was really good. All the way through college, university, I was never told that, and it's fairly true. So I think I'd done 9.5 minutes, and I won it. I won the comedy night, but it was really, when you understand how comedians do it, you understand what it's about. Like, it's recall. So the joke number one is primer joke, but they leave something in there that they're going to use last joke to get back to. So it's like hopscotch. They jump back to different points the whole time, and it taught me about rehearsing it and getting it really on point, and never putting out something that you just, sometimes I do it on social media where I'm busy, I put out something that's just in my head. But some of the stuff that I have in my head, if I write it once, write it twice, write it a third time, it starts to get better. And that's with the comedy night. I think I wrote the script once but I rehearsed it like 50 times.
Yeah.
And and on the night I wasn't nervous at all. It was amazing. I wasn't nervous at all. The place like 300 people. I just got up there. It was just such a great experience. Now I don't think I'd do it again now.
Why not?
I think I had 3 good jokes. That was it. And I think that's all I ever have. So like there were 3 good stories that I used for my life. So I couldn't think of any more after that. So I was like, after it was over, I was thinking, do I have any more funny stories? I was like, no, that's it.
Best to retire on top.
Yeah, I know, it was great. No, it was really enjoyable. I'm only a dad about, I think it was only a daddy about 4 months, and I kind of wanted a sick feeling in my stomach again. I'm really scared of heights, and we went on our honeymoon. We went to Costa Rica, and I had to jump off. I think it was a meter higher than an Olympic diving board, or the highest, and it was like a man-made fucking raft kind of thing in the middle of a jungle in Costa Rica, and you had to run and jump into the water. And it's like a waterfall down the other side. And I was first in a group of 30 because my wife chickened out, Natalie chickened out, so she said, "You do it." And she knows I hate heights. So like I got up and your man just started running after me on the oak. So I just had to run and jump. But it was hilarious because you had to protect your privates, you know. And there was me and another fella. We were down at the very bottom, and of course there was one D-type personality. He thought he was smarter than everyone else. So he let go of his privates and was holding his nose, like, because he was worried about the nose. And he started to spin forward, and he landed face first in the water.
Oh.
And everyone, of course, some people are sympathetic, you know. And there's people from America, there's people from Germany, all of us say, oh my God. Me and a man from England were dying laughing. We're like, didn't care, because I was like, he deserved it because he thought he was smarter than everyone else. But he was last to go, and he thought he was going to show off. But that was a really sick feeling. Oh, that was the sickest feeling I've had in my stomach ever. But I had a sick feeling in my stomach for 2 weeks before the comedy night, and on the night it was gone. Well, I'll probably try and give myself that again twice before the end of the year. That feeling. That really, really worried feeling of this is going to fail. This is going to be bad. Because C-type personalities don't like risk. So you're probably similar to me, Anthony, that way. I'd say you're a C. We like surefire things. So we like calculated risks.
For sure. But no, I agree with you. I have to force myself into those sick feelings, but always in retrospect, you look at it and say, that was miserable leading up to it, but I'm so thankful that I did it, right?
You have a big one coming up now, Anthony, don't you? Marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We're a bit out where the gut feeling hasn't started yet, but I'm sure it's coming for me.
How long away is it?
End of December, the 18th.
Did you put it back?
What's that?
You didn't have to put it back because of COVID.
We did. We did. It was going to be April, and then we had to shift it back.
Oh yeah, I was thinking. Yeah.
So fortunate to be able to change the date and find something that works, but
you would be nervous.
Those butterflies were just starting before the COVID. It's funny. I was talking to my future father-in-law, and we were having a discussion about how the bride is just from the second the engagement happens, it's detail focus, thinking about everything. And then he goes, it wasn't until the month countdown started where I started feeling any of those nerves. And I feel the same thing coming from me, that 4 weeks out.
Yeah, the night before my wedding, I couldn't sleep. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning walking the beach in Portugal. It was crazy.
Yeah.
My wife is an I personality. So it's on the day she's going to party. She doesn't give a shit if the place falls apart. The place could be on fire. She doesn't care.
Right.
Like, give you an example. In Portugal, they asked us, do we want to hire a nice car to bring us to the venue? So the car I drive in Ireland is an Audi. So I said, oh yeah, we'll get an Audi A6, a brand new one, whatever it is. She goes, that's no problem. The fella arrived to pick us up for the wedding. He arrived in a 92 Merc. Like, I mean, it was way off. And I was there going, is this day going to be a disaster? My wife got into the car about an hour later. She never even noticed. I was like, what do you make of the car? She goes, it's nice. I said, it's not a fucking Audi. I said, it's a 1992 Merc. I said, and she was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm happy anyways. So I was like, That's it.
It's too funny, man. Cool. Well, Tommy, I think this was super helpful. I really think that categorizing personality types and then finding different tactics for each of those persons is such a valuable lesson for a new clinician coming in. I think something I think about is when I'm working with students and when I'm working with myself is when you start as a physical therapist, you have to worry about so many different things. I think the first thing is procedural skills. I have a student come in and they're just worried about where to place their hands when they're checking range of motion, right? They don't have the headspace to sit and think about what's the personality of this person. How do I communicate? So when it comes down to that point where you have to, the student has to, hey, tell them what's wrong with them. Tell them what's going on. They just get this deer in the headlights. So I've been looking for a way to systematize that for them. And I think this is a super helpful framework for that. So I hope you get a lot out of that.
No, I think for me, it's the most important thing. Like, I think people get the deer in the headlights feeling because we make such an emphasis on getting the right diagnosis in the first session, doing the right hands-on treatment, putting your hands in the right places. But realistically, we can make a bit of change as therapists, but we're not life and death situations. We're not surgeons, and I think the education system has to change because I see people the whole time that absolutely don't have a clue what they're talking about, but they can convince the client straight away, and the client will get better. And they're not worried about procedural skills because they understand selling something. I think it's not deemed important, but it is for me the most important thing because that's what separates a good to a bad clinician. Is not skill set, is how the rapport. So yeah, I think I'm going to do something on it. I think I'm going to probably break it down, Anthony, and build it out into a system.
I think that'd be great.
To an internal system. I'm going to put it on paper and I'm going to put it into diagrams and stuff like that. I think it'll make more sense. If it's an idea for a book, I don't know if it'd sell, Anthony, though.
I'd buy it, Tommy.
Thanks. I'll sign it.
I absolutely think that would be really impactful for people. I think because for a lot of people, like, who don't come in this with those inherent social skills, like that comedy feeling or that jumping off the cliff feeling in your stomach is what I see in the eyes of those students, or what I felt myself when it's that time where you don't know what to say. So I think you gotta protect your privates, like you said, with scripting yourself, with having those categories and those buckets, because we've all been that guy that's belly flopped.
Yeah, that's going on That's going on, Anthony. That's it. Don't even talk about the rest of what we talked about. That is good right there.
Love it, Tommy. Well, thank you so much for your time today, man. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, good man, Anthony. Thanks very much.
Yep, take care.
You have to send me that clip of you saying that. And what here?